Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's first discussion on top tips for dental lab technician in today's workflow. Brought to you by WeTeamUp. My first guest today is Sevan Pulurian. And how are you doing today? Tell me a little about yourself.
Good, Nick. How about you?
Doing well, doing well.
A little bit about myself. So, started in this industry about 2001, model room and whatnot. Early CAD experience, late 2001, early 2002, Nobel 2D, and then 3D with Nobel, and then the 2016 we got the Surax in lab, and that was a full CAD CAM, first time full CAD CAM experience. And then from there, just dropped it into 3Shape, and been doing 3Shape since, gosh, 2012, and just doing my best to improve the industry and teach others, and hopefully make everybody else's workflow a little bit easier. So that's a little bit about myself.
Excellent. Well, that's cool. Let's go on today's first topic about scanning. What are some of the top tips that you've learned over the years? And give us a little about them.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see here. A little bit about scanning tips. So what I figured is when we scan with the 3Shape and we do implants, there's a lot of back and forthing and a lot of frustration and downtime. So I figured out a simplified workflow. So what I do is when I scan implant models, I scan the first scan with the tissue on there as the tissue scan. And then I'll go ahead and take the tissue off and scan the scan body. And then we'll go ahead and scan the opposing. This whole time while this is all going on, I already have the next thing mounted, ready to go. So
Gotcha.
the bite, and then we get a nice clean scan where it shows the tissue's down where it is, and everything else. So then we got partial scanning with the newer scanners for 3Shape. They're pretty accurate. We can scan with the partial on the model. Then we do a neighborhood scan to get the scan, the intaglio side of the RPD and whatnot, and align it, and then scan the die, and basically everything looks nice and dandy, and it's really easy to do from there. And then for crown and bridge, it's just pretty much just keep the scanner going is my big tip. And in order to do that is before I start scanning, I have everything laid out. I got my model on one plate, my opposing on the other. So I'll go ahead and I'll scan the model with the die in. I'll get the opposing on there scanning. While that's going and this is finished, I have the die on another plate that's ready to go. So I'll scan the die. Now, while the die is scanning in the background, I'm actually mounting the models and with sticky wax, tacking them together on the lingual side or wherever just to make it hold. And then as soon as this is done, I'm on to scanning the bite, and it's already mounted. I'm not waiting. There's no downtime. The scanner's kind of like sitting waiting for me to get ready. And then after that, we're pretty much set and done. So just keep the scanner going.
So you have like 3 or 4 working plates with the blue tack on,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So with the 3Shape scanners, ever since the very beginning, they've sent you 3 plates and blue tack. So I put a little bit of blue tack on one, same amount of blue tack on the other, and then a little bit more on the third one, and I make it into like a mountain, and that's where I'll actually place the die on top of that. And so I have 3 plates, and when I get a case scanning, I just mount the model in the opposing, making sure the blue tack is clear of any of the pins, that it doesn't stick up, and push the pin up without you noticing, and next thing you know, you have a lifted die. So there's a technique to doing that, and then just get it ready. So as soon as one comes off, I actually hear the scanner. I listen to it, how it runs. I hear when the wind down time is. And I know on the E3s, as soon as it's done, there's another little quick adjustment, and then the light comes on. So you have time for post-processing. While you pull that off, you click on the opposing icon, you drop your opposing plate in there. It starts doing the pre-scan while you can get your die off onto the third plate, and then trim your bites, your prep scan, and go back to the opposing. So it's constantly a little bit back and forth, but
yeah,
it constantly keeps it going. And if you only have one scanner, it wouldn't hurt to order 2 more extra plates just for the next case for the model and the posing, and you can actually, get the next case ready in line and that's ready to scan. Another tip is I enter all my cases first, so they're all entered, ready to go, and I have them all in order as I enter them, and then I will actually just go ahead and just keep going. So there's no downtime to enter. So take about 15 minutes in the beginning of the day to enter your cases, and then that way you have your whole queue ready to scan, and then you're just rolling. And we've calculated. I mean, when I work with Unic for a year with 2 D700s, we did about 25 cases in an hour.
We averaged between 60 and 80 cases in 4 hours because we had to finish them, get them pre-prepped, everything. And we didn't get our model work to 11 o'clock most of the time?
But the whole thing is having 2 scanners side by side, equal speed. I was able to start one with a 10-second delay and keep it going, but having everything organized, it was just bang, bang, bang. And within about an hour and a half, I had 25 cases scanned, not even an hour and a half, less than an hour.
Yeah, and that brings us to the second thing I want to bring up is the design side. I know the two of us, we would always, I had one screen where I was designing something big and it took time to render. And then on the other screen, it was those single crowns just in and out, in and out. Tell me about how you evolved that since I've left.
So with designing, it's hard. Like, when you're at your own level and you can do it, it's one thing. But when you have a team of, whether it be 1, 2, or 10, or even 200, for these larger labs, it can be a challenge to try and get everybody to kind of get your understanding of how things go. So, it's sit down and explain to them and explain basically how the tools work. Knowing how the tools work is definitely the biggest key to anything in the design. The tools, how to use them, and you're good. It's, if I go out and buy a Kolinsky Smile Line brush and spend $150 on it, I don't think I'm going to actually compact my porcelain any better than a master ceramist using them, because I don't know how to use the tool. But you know how to use the tool, you'll actually know how to perform a lot better. So it's just, I mean, obviously you have to know the basics of analog, contours, shapes, contact, occlusion, function, and whatnot. So to get the point across, it's kind of a challenge. But the biggest thing I can say is to take into consideration if it's a hard prep like this one. You kind of see right here, it comes up to a little point right here, and I got this opening right here, so we could probably try to fill that. But it's a lot of also communication with the doctor as well. Mm-hmm. So with the crown and everything set in place, you can see right here, this is a split file crown. How I normally set my contacts, a little bit, not too heavy. And we got this underneath here. With that, we'll go ahead and we can design the abutment underneath the crown. And we can see where, if I want to bring this a little bit more this way, get proper support. This is going to be a little challenge right here, but finding out a good workflow for you is definitely going to be what's key. And my workflow may not work for you or somebody else, but finding out a key workflow is definitely a good thing. And knowing how to do split files, and everybody wants to say, I want to be a designer. Yeah, I want to design crowns. I want to design these full arch cases and this. This is okay. Do you know your basic stuff? You know what a buckle is. You know what a lingual, palatal. And intaglio. You know all these things. If I tell you to do this, are you going to know what to do? So that's key. But I think the biggest part is understanding the manufacturing side. just because the fact that a lot of people will probably design an abutment something like this, where it's got a nice tight radius down here, and they'll probably say, oh yeah, this is going to be really good, but when they get it, it doesn't fit, and they're scratching
Yeah,
their
talk a
head
little
and
bit
going,
about that.
and then going wondering, why doesn't it fit? Well, have you manufactured an abutment, whether it be a titanium in-house or a zirconia in-house? I mean, you can just do zirconia in-house and you'll understand how all this goes. It's understanding the manufacturing side. So if I send this off to Argan or Nobel to have this abutment made, they're only going to use a 1 millimeter. They're not going to get into this corner right here and get in with a 0.6, and no one's ever going to do that. So 2.5, 1 millimeter tool is max what they use on manufacturing. So the shoulder radius right here, I don't want it to be 0.5. 0.5 is 1 millimeter. Well, yeah, it's 1 millimeter tool is going to get in there, but take into consideration vertiflexion, the step over rate, the RPM. There's a lot of things going on in this. So what I do is I actually expand this to at least 1.0 or 1.
Okay, bring it up so a 2 millimeter vert can get in there.
Exactly. So when the 1 millimeter comes in, I mean, it's just gonna refine this area, and it's done. So 1 millimeter, 1.0 millimeter on the radius right here is good.
Okay.
And then also on the top, I do about a 0.6, just so it's nice and round. And the key to anything in design, especially on split files or even standard manufacturing, is angles. 90-degree angles are CAD CAM's worst enemy. I mean, that will be the fall of anything. So when you manufacture, you don't want to have this. And I think sometimes I've even gone as far as putting an
anti-rotational groove on it.
Yeah, exactly. But people, then you go, oh well, that's not gonna flow. So what I'll do is sometimes.
Oh, you'll put a flat angle on it. I gotcha.
Well, even if I do something like this, you can quickly see it. I'll play it. This is what I'm talking about. This part right here. We got a little lag, but this part right here, that 90-degree, that's the worst thing you can possibly do. So what I like to do is I come in here and do a little smooth, not that much, but a little smoothing right here.
And that helps with the draw, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, that'll help with the drill compensation here. The drill compensation on this part, I'm not really concerned, because when we go to the next step right here, and I apply my die spacer,
you can hide that up a little bit.
Yeah, I've even increased the drill comp a little bit here. Let's bring it down and do a preview. And it's all about doing preview steps to check where everything's going to go. So you got your thickness map right here. I think, it looks like it's messed up, but if we do a 2D cut real fast, I think we'll actually see that you can see right here that it's a lot more cleaned out. It actually cuts in here, but the drill compensation's out here. So I'm not too worried about this area. And then at the top, see a nice contour. There's no drill compensation. It's all die spacer. So knowing how to do the proper design on the abutment for split file is key, and that's where manufacturing comes in, just even for regular crown and bridge, or even when you do a big thimble bridge and whatnot. And then the other thing is the contacts. Like I said, again, knowing your tools is key. So if I come here and I do my undercut, a little like that, but that's what I'll set to 1. So they'll go -4. And I come here, I can do this. It's actually going to go and stop it. When you see here, this is going to be your undercut. This is the draw. So knowing how to use the tools, and whether software you use, whether it's 3Shape or ExoCAD, know how to use the tools and contacts, because when I get rid of this and I get rid of that, it's basically going to be from the widest point of contour, it's going to be clean. And C contacts are the killer for basic crown fit. So if you don't do that, and you add a little bit here, and add a little bit here to bring it out, and you say, oh yeah, this looks good, right? But when I give it to my designer, you can see right here that there's a C contact, and that's not going to be, he's going to have to sit there and grind all this, and the fitter is going to take for hours, and now he's going to lose production. So design side, everyone's flying and making everything look good, you know, what they think that looks good, but then the guy fitting it is miserable to do it. And that's the other topic is how much time do you want to spend on post-processing after it's been done? I say no more than 3 to 5 minutes a crown.
Yeah, I would like to bring that up to you after the next couple topics for sure.
Yeah.
Because I know, you know, our past, you know, working with you on this, we sat next to each other on the finishing design. So our communication was great. But I want to talk to you about what you've done with your team in the next couple of questions. So I also noticed too with this is that you choose a specific library. You know, when we worked together on this, we had a plethora of libraries, and then we created our own. So you're an advocate on people doing that as well?
You know, it depends on where you go. Like some people, and it depends on the client. Some people want to have a nice crown regardless of what's there. Some people want to mimic it. So it's find out what your clients like, and obviously you don't want to put 30-degree anatomy on a 0-degree patient's mouth. It's come on, you know, there's certain cases where no matter what it is, it's not going to work. But you know, it depends. Like this is just something I'm just messing around with over here. You see, this one's got some anatomy. Don't know what's happening here, but this is wiped out. This is wiped out. Was this because the doctor's impression was horrible? Who knows? Intraoral scans are actually probably going to be better at that, but I think you know, finding out what anatomy library works with each case. A lot of labs will do that. They'll actually find you know, things. And actually, the library is key to how well you design, because sometimes, you know, Nick, like on this one right here, when we brought the library in, the corner was hanging like way down there, and we'd have to a lot more. It was okay before we can get this thing into position. It was a standard click, click, click. Okay, now we're ready to go. So knowing the library, you know, and it doesn't take that long to select it. It takes a couple minutes, not even like 10 seconds to find a library that is going to fit. And you can actually alter your own libraries. I know in 3Shape you can. Pretty sure in ExoCAD you can go in and edit the current library and make a copy and morph it around to your liking and smooth it out and whatnot. So yeah, you can. That's really up to the users themselves to figure out and go. But definitely, the library is key to how well you design a single case, because you don't want to sit there and do 500 or 1,000 clicks.
No.
And to
I'm
try
a
and
big
pull,
advocate of under 30 is what you're going for these.
Yeah, try to go. What he was saying, like 16 clicks is the max on a molar or a bicuspid. I think about 30, 50 is about a good mark. But you know, over the years I've learned since 2012, clicks aren't everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I got a crown that I outsourced to a guy, and it was roughly 1,300 or 1,700 clicks on one, and like 3,500 clicks on 2 anterior teeth, and they look like garbage.
Yeah.
But if you do 1,000 clicks and it only takes you 7 minutes, I don't see a problem with that. As long as
just to me, it tells me that you know your tools really, really well to get stuff done, or you just, you know, a lot of guys just like to mess with it and play with it, you know.
A lot of people will just they'll actually just be, you know, very click happy, and which is fine. You know, I'll come in here and I'll come click, 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 and stuff like that. But again, knowing the tools is key. Maybe a morph tool is better than a wax sculpt tool, because you can move a mass, and in one click you move a mass instead of just adding a little bit and adding up, and that actually takes to rebuild time and the size of the case and whatnot. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next subject about nesting, because you've got some pretty cool ways that you've been nesting at your place. Um,
Yeah.
how much time do you think it's worth like spending nesting? Do you think you just throw it in there and go, or do you actually take some time and set it up?
You know, I think it depends. Like I approach it differently sometimes. If I just want to if I get the case started, I think the first first couple of runs it's throw and go.
Yeah.
So like you can see here, I've started here and you know, I maybe started in the center or whatnot, and I go 1, 2, 3, and I'll get these going, and then I'll come in here, I'll place 1, 2, 3 right here, and or 4, and maybe I'll come in here and cut this out before the disc. But sometimes I switch it up. I know with you, you can see I got the 2 prong going on here.
Hmm.
On these molars, I've done 3. But like for instance, if I bring in a screw tank crown right here, or this crown right here, um, you can see right here, this case is pretty much even all the way around. It's got a nice even wall um, from top to bottom. So what we, you know, and we practice this with when you were with me. We do a setup like this, do 3
Yep.
crowns, and we do all of these this way. So that way, when this whole row is all done, we can actually come in here and start nesting the second row right in top, and brings me to this guy right here. And I don't have to worry about that pin. Let's say this pin was gone. I don't have to worry about that pin not being there. So, you know, that's a couple tips. But if, let me see if I can find one of these. Like you see how right here, this is lower here, and the facial side is taller or right here. So I'm not going to sit here and put 3 screws right here. That's going to be an instant fail.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, yeah, well, I guess you got lucky and your tools were pretty good. But you know, on certain cases, the triangle method is still key to go, and how to wax in place. Like this one, you know, just to play it safe, I did it that way. But um, I think knowing your CAM software and how to do it. This is a dental softworks from Wieland. Um, so pretty easy to use, and also just like design, knowing your CAM software is
Hmm.
key. You know how to be able to go in and alter strategies, you know, and change it up to your liking. You can change your RPMs, knowing that, understanding that, um, disabling undercuts if you don't need them, you know, creating custom strategies and whatnot. This is pretty much key to the cam side as well.
Yeah.
Knowing how to make a custom strategy with a long reach tool to get in if you have on full arch bridges, when you you know, have a tall crown and you got to get that screw channel down, but your tool keeps colliding and it breaks the top of the crown or the top of the bridge, and then you're just screwed. It's like you're just frustrated and you don't,
Hmm.
you know, you don't know what to do. So knowing that, you know, not all uh, burr manufacturers make certain tools for all machines. Like I got lucky with the Wieland Softworks. Um, Wieland actually has a 1.5 flat end tool. So what do I need a 1.5 flat end tool for? And I'll explain to you. You know, again, this is understanding what tools you have at your disposal and how to use them. So we've done a screw retain crown right here, and you can see this library 90-degree right here. It's got a 90-degree there, and there's a 90-degree fitting right there. 1 millimeter tool is definitely not going to get in there and get that. So,
Hmm.
um, you know, we run a simulation, and simulation is key, whether it be on a bridge with individual insertion points or a lot of undercuts, but knowing your tools is key. So if I turn the simulation on here, you can actually see green means 0.01 you know, it's what you want to see is green, and you can see right here, look, that one bird got in there just a little bit right there. I'm not worried about, but also got in there. I think this is key to understanding how to use your tools and cam software to achieve optimal. Now I will tell you this, I've dialed this strategy in for the screw retain crown from True Abutment, and the tie base will literally drop right into that. I
Oh,
won't
that's
have to
perfect.
go. I won't have to go in with a burr. And normally this would be yellow right here because a 1 millimeter ball end can't get into that crevice.
No, not at all.
And depending on the library, if they design the library where there's from where the tie base stops and the actual outer limit or the base that's going to be this part right here is, there may be a little space. So you may not have to worry about this. So while you're designing, do a 2D slice with your base in there and see where the, you know, there's gaps are. If it's a good designed case library, it works out pretty well. But, you know, again, running simulation is, you know, like you can see here, this is a standard computer that came with them. It's nothing fast. I mean, simulation is key. You may not have to do it on this, but if you got something with an anterior case with an undercut on the lingual, you may want to do it because you may have to go back and expand the offset, the milling area, to allow, see how they created more room to
Yeah, so
allow
the tool can
more.
get into the deeper sections for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's also key, is to understanding, again, knowing your tools in your CAM software to do this
Yeah,
factor.
do you mind showing me one of the larger full arch cases that you do? Because I know you guys kind of specialize in those.
Yeah, so here's one that I did. This one was a fun challenge to do. It's already pre-calculated, so it's much easier. But you can see I actually had to come in here and add a, and how you did when your days with Hyperdent, you can come into, this is a user-defined area. It's not called user-defined. I actually created a new insertion direction and defined the area. So in a way, it's a user-defined, and you can see that this case right here, this is the angled screw channel. So you can see I'm looking straight down into the tie base, but I can't see the top because it's angled. So these cases definitely all take a lot of time.
Yeah, just the setup, right? Like, so I noticed.
Setting up, it's one part of the thing, and I'll run you through that as well. But simulation is the biggest thing on these cases. You
always have to do that.
Always. Like if you don't, you either got some big cojones or you got money that you don't care.
Yeah, I mean,
and time, and you're not.
Time is the big one here, because if you don't have time to do it right, how do you have time to do it over? That's what
exactly. I mean,
I just don't get.
We're talking about anywhere from a 2.5 to a 3 to almost 4 hour runtime on these.
Easy,
easy. You know, especially if you can do an 18 millimeter, you're probably looking at about 2.5, 3 hour. But you get 25,
those
30
millimeter pucks.
Yeah, you're talking. I've had about a 4 hour run with the Whelen Softworks, and it can be, it can be nerve wracking. So you can see right here, and this is where this one actually milled out fine, but you can see there was actually red here, and I cleaned all that out. But you can see right here, this blue is collision, and you can see somehow this is not really going off as planned, but for the most part, you can see there's it's pretty much green, good to go. I wouldn't worry about that as much. A little bit right there, but most of the time it's green, and it's good. And obviously embrasures. This is a 1 millimeter, so I'll get to how you do post processing on that later. But another part is I have another simulation that's normal that shows tool collision outside of the design on the outer walls.
Got it.
So, and especially hard right there. So that burr, that flange of the burr is going to come and it's going to hit right there while it's doing 5-axis, and it's going to be disastrous.
Yeah, but I know you've taken your handpiece in there and carved that out manually.
That's one thing. Or the other thing you can do is, the good thing with this is I actually can come in here and create a another spline to come here and cut, and I can do this and add these right here. So what it's going to do is it's going to come in here and it will actually cut these out. Now these are just obviously with this software. You may not be able to do this with some 3D, or I know Hyperdent's much more where you can actually expand it all the way and actually take the disc and mill the disc down 2-3 millimeters, getting rid of that. So each software is a different way, but I'll add this, and like this cut spline to create the support brace, it's actually going to come in here and cut this. And what I will tell it to do in the order is, let's see if I can get this to happen real fast, is actually cut these slots first in Q. So
Okay.
it'll go in there and it'll go upper and lower and it'll cut that support brace out. So like you can see here, bridge is number 1 and whatnot. So if I come down here with this software and I say, well, you know what, let's bring this.
Make that like number 2.
Exactly. Well, actually make exactly number 2. What's number 1? The bridge. I think the bridge is still number 1. But we can do that. So it comes in here and it cuts that first. It cuts that part out first and goes forward. So you actually clear the material first before you actually start cutting the bridge. And
right.
now you have to think of it that way. Well, it's still going to show red because it doesn't know what order you're going to cut it in. But if you figure it out and you say, well, hey, I've come in here and I've actually cut these areas out first, I can kind of say those markings are void because that material now is not there. It's actually thinking ahead. How is this going to play out and stuff like that? So each CAM software is different, but I highly encourage any designer to go in and nest and learn nesting and learn off the CAM guy. Because the CAM guy is probably going to be like, I can't cut this. And you can be like,
yeah, because the designer put a 40-degree screw channel because that's what he thinks he can do. Because
exactly.
the design software allows him. It comes to the mill software and you're like, well, the machine's limitation is 25 degrees.
Exactly.
So it's not going to work. Like the other thing too is I see you're adding the sintering bars for your large.
Yeah, this, and this is this can easily become a controversial topic. Depends on who you ask.
Yes.
So yeah, the standard is definitely put a brace in. Depending on the size of the bridge, you can see here I've left a pretty decent amount. And this has worked. You don't want to make it so thin that the sintering brace is now the weak part. You want the support braces as well. You can see here, these are 3mm support braces.
Yeah.
These are 2.5. And what I did is I've actually come in here and I've set these to be 100% cut. So these will come and they will get cut out. So I don't have to cut those. I have to only cut these ones out, and posterior supporting of the sprues is not a big deal. It's very easy to clean, and it's in the back. No one's really gonna notice it. But the anterior teeth, you really want it to be nice and clean, straight out of the mill. The less touching you have to do, the better off the design looks. But definitely 3 in the back, 2.5 in the front. Cut these off, and then after the braces, it's kind of hard to see this. And it took me a few times to understand, but what you guys are looking at is this white part is going to be the brace, is the brace. Yeah. This gray is going to be cut out, and this gray is going to be cut here. And what I'll do is I'll actually end up cutting this out. So this whole center piece will be gray. And then I'll actually come here and cut here and cut here. And then basically this whole white thing with these 4 sprues will be my base. Let me see if I can quickly find a picture of what it looks like outside.
Now I know we've had a ton of problems over the years with centering these things coming out warped or coming out at not the right shade that we have planned.
You can see right here. You see how this is it right here? So if I cut this off and I cut this and I cut this off, I have my support brace around there. So that's how it kind of cams out to be. And
it looks like for this one here, you only have 3 lingual support braces for centering. Yeah,
and I did 3. I did 3, and I was comfortable with doing 3, and then something said, yeah, just do 4. So it depends on how my mood is.
3 or 4. Do you center it standing up like a Christmas tree, or do you center it in beads?
They go vertical.
Yeah.
They go straight up. Now, I did have a scary moment one time, and I was actually coloring the bridge, and it fell out of my hand, and it broke. I don't think I have the pictures here, but it was pretty hair-raising. It broke, and what I ended up doing was my standard cycle for this is 10.5 hours, start to finish. Actually, 10.5 hours just start to finish on the heating cycle. So the cooling cycle still has about another 4 to 5 hours. So I'm looking at almost 16, 17 hours start to finish from cool to cool, I can touch without burning my hand. And one time when I did that, it was an upper and lower case, and I just kind of lost all my feeling. My gut it was just a hard hit.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to do this? I said, well, I don't have time to redo it. I don't have another disc. Bridge is fine from what I can tell. There could be a microfracture. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and try this. So what I did was I actually extended the climb time from up to the high temp of 1515. I actually extended it from 10 hours to 14 hours. So it was 16 hours start to finish. And what I did is I actually cleared out I put it in a round tray, and I put it down. I put the standing one on one side, and I took the other arch and I kind of laid it down, and I put more beads in there than I normally would for crown and bridge. And that's just so that it acts as a cushion. And I put that down there and I set it in, and I just prayed to the zirconia sintering gods. And I came in the next day, and literally the thing dropped right in. Like all the tie bases dropped in, and I said, here's the test. And I put it on, it was just clicked right in. And you should have heard me in the lab. I was yelling with cheer. So it can be done. And, there's people out there that do it with a 10-hour, 14-hour cycle with no beads. No sintering brace. Definitely don't use the 1 millimeter beads. Don't use the big ones, because those get stuck in, and you say it's zirconia, it can't distort. Oh, well, let me tell you, when beads get stuck in places,
it does.
I've had margins like bow out, and I've had like an open margin, and the design's fine. So definitely use a 0.5 millimeter sintering bead, the fine, they call it zirconia dust. Use that, even in crown and bridges. I don't use the big ones. Plus, with the big ones, you're stop mobily placing stuff, and you're like, I got 20 crowns. I've got 20 in there before, and then you're having a hard time moving them. With the smaller beads, you can actually move stuff, so you can they stay in place better.
Yeah, for sure.
That's definitely.
Lastly, let's get into, how did your team? Did they finish in the green state, or do they finish do most of their contouring after it's been sintered?
It's a little bit of both. If it's if I do crown and bridge, the most things that we will actually finish doing is the sprues. Really, I just clean the sprues down, and I would either use a finishing burr. Kind of trying to figure out what it would be like, more like a rubber wheel. The white rubber wheel.
The white rubber wheels.
Yeah, I use the ones from Brasler mainly. Is a good thing to go. The other thing is, I'm trying to find it while we're looking at it, is Wagner. Wagner's got a really good line of tools. They actually even have a zirconia green state finishing kit that you can buy and use to finish your zirconia down. Crowns, I just really just smooth the tool, the sprues down, and that's pretty much it.
Are you still doing the red pencil on the inside of the margins and thinning out the margins, or have you dialed in your mill?
I at one point I started doing that, and then it was getting a little finicky, and the chip while it was sintering because it's too thin, or when they glazed it, it was getting way too thin.
Gotcha.
But hey, if it works for you, continue. I'm not saying don't do it. Just saying be very cautious. Try it, but actually do 2 crowns and try one and try one, not another. Then I actually increased my margin offset in my designs to 2 mil, like
2/10.
2/10. So it was nice and thick, and with that I got longevity on my burrs. I was getting thousands and thousands of units of burr, and I was like, wow, $159 tool actually lasted me like literally almost 2 months.
To me that's worth it.
That's worth it. But then you have the other side is like, well, the finisher's taking longer, and he's using greenstones or burrs, and they're running through that more, and it's taking longer there. So it's a fine, delicate balance. So now what I've done is I've actually brought it down to 0.15, and it's in the sintered state after it's done. It's actually just zip and done. You know, my fitter actually is like, wow, it's way better. But on the full arch cases, I definitely do put more love in.
Of
On
course.
top of, this is the Brasler tool to cut the sprues down and clean up sharp edges on the support brace. I will actually go in with this is a Wagner burr tool
It's a
right here.
rubber wheel, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's super thin and flexible. I'll open up the embrasures, and this one I'll actually go in and smooth out. If sometimes I get my Z's off a little bit, I'll get little step lines. I'll go in and smooth it off.
Okay.
But you know, green is a little bit coarse. They have all white or all green. All white is a nice fine, so it takes off a little bit at a time. And they have a tool like this to get in and clean out a little bit more embrasures and whatnot. But definitely look into the Wagner tools. They're very great. And like I said, they actually have a green state. But I think these, it's a 50-50 green state finish and 50-50 finish on the sintered state. If not, it may be 60-40, 70-30.
Okay. Yeah, it all depends. Each case is unique.
Yeah, and you know, some like the Sum 3D and the Roland 51s, not the 50s or the 52s, but the 51s, you had 90-degree vertical milling. So that 0.3 can get in there and clean out those anterior embrasures, and you almost have zero finish time. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Another thing, like I said, manufacturing, learn your tools. IMS I-Core can do that. And a few handful of mills have 90-degree milling. But
yeah, and that's extremely helpful when it comes to the overall look of the case, because you can definitely tell a case that comes out from the mill that's been beautifully done to one that somebody spent hours cleaning it up in the green state trying to make it look good. It's a different effect,
Exactly.
Especially when you spend all that time designing it. You know, especially the anteriors. You know, like we would really have, you know, beautiful looking anterior in the design step, in the mill step, and then we give it to the guy to finish it, and all of a sudden he'd start recontouring everything. It's like, well, why did I spend all the time doing that?
It can be challenging to see, you know, you do all that stuff and all of a sudden it's destroyed, and it's just kind of a you're like, oh, why did that happen? Like, look at this.
Yeah, exactly.
Design.
Now, this is the case that we were just nested. You're going to show us?
No, this is actually another case that I did a thimble bridge, and I was just going to show you as far as like what you were talking about. You know, you get this nice design right here. You get all these, and obviously this is cut back a little bit more so the ceramics can put a glass and get a nice pink. But you get all this design, and it looks all, you know, good. And next thing you know, your fitter takes it and he just destroys it. And then the boss comes to you like, why is this? And you go, but it's not like this. And I have these issues a lot with veneers, wax veneers, because I have to put the wax veneer, I have to put the sprues on the interproximal corners because, you know, there's where else are you going to put them? So it becomes hard, you know, after you do all this work, and then the guy's like, well, where'd it go? It's like, well, it's not like that. This contour is off. And I go, well, that's where I put the sprue. He probably over reduced it. And then I got to cut him again. But this is that case that was right here that I just showed you.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Before. So yeah, that's the actual case. This was a gnarly case to work on. This was you can see like I got this case. We did a bite rim, and I sent it off, and he's like, I get it, and we mount the bite, and
what?
Exactly. Anybody be like,
not right.
Dog, this is not right. He goes, okay, well, this is a mentally challenged patient, so there's disability. He's got a caretaker.
Okay.
And you know, and you look at this, you're like, this can't be right. Well, take into consideration that they did a bone reduction on this, and they over reduced the lower jaw. Like, I'm thinking, how much bone did this guy have? Like, and apparently he had a lot, but we did a wax try-in, and it came out to be this was the bite. That was it. You can see right here. I mean, I took pictures and I emailed the doctor. He goes, no, that's about right. I mean,
wow. Okay.
it's pretty crazy, but when you
it's not ideal, but that's why we still have jobs, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was this case right here. You know, look at the wide offset and whatnot. So yeah, that's it. That's the
Well,
case.
it turned out great, man.
So that's the fun things we deal with on a daily basis. But definitely knowing the understanding of how to do stuff as well definitely comes in to fact. Like, you know, for designing, like, how did I get to this point? Well, I had a pre-op, and my pre-op was actually a virtual wax up that was
Gotcha.
done. So I actually then to show this is the actual design of the other case. I just made a virtual wax up of this, and then with that, you know, we can design bridges like this Toronto thimble bridge. But
Yeah.
cases like this is how are you going to manufacture this? So I just say mill it to the best you can, clean it up, and then rescan it,
Yes.
and
Again.
then do the teeth over it. And the good thing is knowing the software, like all this is interchangeable. So I ended up bringing the design back in from the diagnostic wax up back into the final and connecting it as well. So
Okay.
you know, it was pretty lucky to get that. And that's also knowing the software, how it works and whatnot. So I'm a 3Shape user, and I know 3Shape in and out, and it saves me a lot of time on these giant cases. So
Yeah. Well, man, thanks, man. Everything was really cool. I really appreciate you taking the time with us
yeah.
and going through this, man. Yeah, anything else to say before we close up?
Never stop learning.
Perfect.
You know, 2020, man, it's not all about textbooks anymore. It's online forums. Google is your BFF. It's better than your best friend in real life.
Yeah.
You don't know how to do something, literally search, how do I set up so-and-so in a roll and mill? And you will be surprised on what you will find. Just search. It's an endless database. Constantly educate yourself. Join forums for the tools you have. We have a study group for 3Shape. I know Michael Webb has the Millbox user, and that's targeted tons of people. You know, because now instead of people asking in the ExoCAD group or 3Shape group, hey, Millbox users, how do you do this? And kind of mixing up the vibe in that group, it has its own group now. So definitely search Facebook groups is the best key, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Online,
pretty much why I joined Facebook back in the day was for those groups and educational things, because nobody was out there. You know, nobody had answers. You'd call in the support line and, you know, they're not in the field of doing all these crazy cases that need help with it. And that's, I think, where you are one of the pioneers for it, of starting a bunch of different Facebook pages and getting stuff up and running.
not really starting, but taking them to a different level. 3Shape.
Well, yeah, I mean, the torch has been handed to multiple people, and it's so amazing to see how it has grown since when, you know, back in 2009 when it was the fetus of it. So it was pretty cool. I mean, but I want to end today. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
Hope you guys will be joining our next one. Thanks, Sevan.
Thank you, Nick.